Hi LEGO fans, it's Brickheadz time again, and I thought I'd better get round to reviewing this before I run out of time. It's the final Brickheadz seasonal set of 2018, and this one's a twin pack. Throughout the year I've reviewed the Valentine's Bee, the Easter Bunny, the Halloween Witch, the Thanksgiving Turkey, but I've really been looking forward to Mr Claus and Mrs Claus. So today I'm going to be unboxing, speed building, and reviewing set number 40274, the Mr Claus and Mrs Claus twin pack from LEGO Brickheadz. This is a 341 piece set featuring Brickheadz' recreation of Father Christmas and his wife Mrs Claus. And like the other seasonal Brickheadz, we also get some additional theming. It looks like Father Christmas has a Christmas tree covered in some snow, and Mrs Claus has a tray of cupcakes and whatever that thing is. Over on the back of the box is pretty much what we'd expect to see. We've got side views of Mrs Claus and Mr Claus, and this confirms that both will come with the seasonal base plate. I'm pretty excited to get these guys built and on display for Christmas. So let's get this box open and see what we've got inside. Here's everything that came inside the box. We've got 4 numbered bags of Lego, 2 for Mr Claus, and 2 for Mrs Claus. And each comes with its own instruction booklet. A 42-page instruction booklet for Mr Claus, and a 40-page booklet for Mrs Claus. I'm going to go ahead and put together the Mr Claus and Mrs Claus twin pack, and today this is going to be a 60-second speed build. And here are the completed Mr and Mrs Claus Brickheadz. What a fantastically festive pair of LEGO builds. These are great! You might have noticed a couple of different pairs of hands in the speed build, and that's because my kids were particularly keen to build these models. Between the 11-year-old and the 16-year-old, the build time was 38 minutes. With many of the seasonal Brickheadz this year, the additional accessories has just been mainly filler. But in this set, those additional features really add to the festive appeal. Let's take a closer look at both models, starting of course with Father Christmas. So here's the big red guy, and what a fantastic example of a Brickheadz build he is. Like all of this year's seasonal Brickheadz, we have one of these seasonal Brickheadz printed tiles. LEGO has announced the seasonals for next year, and they are going to be Brickheadz again. So it'll be interesting to see whether we still get the seasonal printed base plate. Mr Claus's costume is pretty much what you'd expect, the seasonal red and white affair. He's wearing grey boots, red pants, and a black belt complete with large golden buckle. He also has some really nice white trim around the bottom of the jacket. Mr Claus wouldn't be Mr Claus without a large white moustache and a set of whiskers. And this Brickheadz build does not disappoint. Apart from the soulless Brickheadz eyes, the actual facial features are inferred from the facial hair. Let's focus on those eyes for just 1 second. Earlier in the year I reviewed the Albus Dumbledore Brickhead. His eyes were really cool printed tiles with gold rimmed spectacles, and I thought that would look superb on a Father Christmas figure. Was I right? Was I wrong? Let's find out. Well, that certainly satisfies my curiosity. Actually, this does look pretty good, but not quite as good as I anticipated. I think I can happily put the other eyes back on now. In retrospect, I think he looks just fine the way LEGO made him. Up on top, Mr Claus is wearing his traditional red hat. This is trimmed with white elements for the fur, and adjusting the camera angle you can see the pom-pom on the end of the hat as it hangs over Mr Claus's left shoulder. The hat is quite a minimal affair and sits on top of the head. We do have white hair on the sides and the back of the build, but this doesn't have a crazy amount of texture. The hair on the back of the head is pretty simple and relies mostly on slopes to create the texture. But that's okay because we're going to be viewing Father Christmas from the front most of the time. There's nothing crazy exciting around the back of the build, but we do get some nice detail picking out Santa's belt and the white fur trim at the bottom of his jacket. From the side we have the usual Brickheadz clips for hands, and that allows Father Christmas to hold some accessories. I apologise, I keep calling him Father Christmas, Santa and Mr Claus. It's probably not going to get any better throughout the video, so just hang in there. Speaking of accessories, in his left hand Mr Claus is holding a sack. That's a really nice LEGO element, and it also works really well with minifigures. To the right of Mr Claus we've got this really nice Christmas tree build. We see this sort of thing a lot in the LEGO advent calendars, but this one is really nice. I like the size proportions with it standing next to Mr Claus, and the way LEGO have used some white cheese slopes in there to make it look like it's covered in snow is really cool. We also have some decoration over on Mr Claus's left with this stack of well-wrapped presents. I really like the addition of the silver and gold studs to make this stack of gifts really pop. I really can't find anything I dislike about Mr Claus. This is a really nice brickhead with true festive feeling, and although I paid the full price of $20 for my twin pack, I did notice that LEGO have been reducing these sets before Christmas. So if you do get a chance to drop into your local LEGO store, this thing is a steal. Mrs Claus is another great example of a Brickheadz build, and she looks great in this festive red and white costume. Plus she comes bearing gifts, which is always a good thing. Just like Mr Claus, we have the festive seasonal Brickheadz printed tile. Mrs Claus wears a festive red dress trimmed all the way around the bottom in fur. It's really neat the way LEGO have got that effect all the way around the body. The costume is decorated with elegant white flowers, and around the shoulders you can see that Mrs Claus is wearing a festive shawl. The eyes are the usual soulless Brickheadz variety, but I do like the way that they're framed with the grey hair. The hair on this build is a really nice feature, and it gives Mrs Claus a very grandmotherly appearance. I also like the way it's covered up by the hood. The red hood covers the back of Mrs Claus's head, and there's a really nice piece of detailing up on top with a green flower. In contrast to Mr Claus, there is some very specific detailing on the back of Mrs Claus's dress. We've got this white bow which looks super cool, and you can see the white detailing for what I think is Mrs Claus's apron. That would explain the flowers around the front. She also has clips for hands, and her left hand is left empty. It's a different matter on the other side where she's waiting with a tray of cookies and cupcakes for Mr Claus. And just in case he's thirsty, there's a nice mug of hot cocoa. I really like the little table with the gold telescope element. The decoration on the other side is a little less obvious. There's a green leaf element with a red flower which makes a really festive addition. As we saw with the LEGO advent calendars, LEGO doesn't really lend itself very well to candy canes. This is no exception, and I don't think this is really the high point of the build. But that doesn't take away from Mrs Claus being a beautiful thing. As a Brickheadz build it's very accomplished, and as a piece of festive decoration this is super. Even if you're one of those people who doesn't enjoy LEGO Brickheadz, this is a really nice festive build. We've seen a lot of superb LEGO sets during 2018, and this easily sits among my favourites. Not only is it really festive, but with a 341 piece part count, I think it's good value for money also, especially if you can pick it up discounted. Whether you collect Brickheadz or not, this is definitely worth considering for your collection. Out of all of the 2018 LEGO Brickheadz seasonals, these are definitely my favourites. I've enjoyed reviewing these, the kids tell me they were great fun to build, and these will be used as Christmas decorations for many years to come. All that remains is for me to say I hope you enjoyed this LEGO Brickheadz unboxing, speed build and review video. If you did and you're feeling super festive, a thumbs up is always appreciated. With the exception of the Comic Con specials, I think I've reviewed every Brickheadz so far. So feel free to binge watch the playlist I'm going to put up at the end of the video. Thanks a million for checking out this festive unboxing, speed build and review video. Stay safe and we'll see you next time.